All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're so happy to have you join us for our webinar on email deliverability revealed. Today, we're going to be talking about proven tactics to ensure your brokerage's messages reach the inbox. So it's a super hot topic right now, especially as everyone's looking to grow. And there's a new game for email deliverability. We have a lot of new standards and tightened restrictions for getting emails to inboxes. So we are going to be covering that today. My name is Jenna. I work with the product here at Brokerkit. And I have Jim with us. He is our CEO and co-founder at Brokerkit. A little bit about what we do here. So we help residential real estate brokers ramp their growth by improving their agent recruiting and retention. And I'm going to walk you through some big picture items for email deliverability. And then Jim is going to take you through some practical and technical steps you can go through to make sure you're doing the best you can to get your emails delivered. All right. So why are we all here today? Email deliverability. It's a super fun topic, and it's a lot of moving pieces. So what we have is unreliable email reach. Key emails that you are taking so much time to craft are ending up, getting blocked. They're getting in spam folders. They're not reaching the target. So back in September of 2021, 20 to 30% of legitimate emails were being blocked. This is a big deal then, but it's even harder now because we have top providers like Google and Microsoft changing big things in the last year. And also we have AI and machine learning. They're coming in and they have algorithms that are saying, this isn't a legit email, and they're going to spam or they're getting blocked. And so it's a new game. There's new rules and there's a lot of moving pieces to this. What is this doing for your business? It's making your emails that you've worked so hard on not reach their target. And that's impacting your growth and your results and everything that you want out of your emails. It's getting blocked. So how do we maintain business growth and effectively recruit, even when these things are changing? We're going to take a look at that. So you're going to see a poll pop up on your screen. I'll give you guys a few seconds to fill that out and let us know if you've experienced this issue.
Okay. And then for the people that might be watching the video later and can't see what's on the screen, so the question is, have you had challenges with your agent recruiting emails going to spam? And I'd say it's 97% have said yes versus 3% no. So you can see that there's definitely an impact there. Okay, I'll go ahead and end the poll because that was pretty definitive. So I'm not sure we need to keep running it.
All right. So if you're part of that 3%, I just, hope you continue to have that same luck with your email deliverability. For those of you that have had this already impact you, yes, so we had 97% have had yes. So what we want to do is we want to unlock that email potential. You all see this picture of the beach. We want you relaxing on the beach, knowing that you have your email deliverability well in hand. And we're going to do this through enhanced reach. So making sure those emails are getting where you want them to go. And you're increasing your efficiency, making sure those campaigns that you've worked on and those emails that you've crafted, they're getting to your target, which is going to get you, more opportunities to connect and business growth. I'd love to tell you there's a silver bullet. I would absolutely love to say, take this one key item, this action step, and go apply it, and you'll be fixed. You'll be good to go. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. Like we said, email has a lot of moving pieces to it. Deliverability has a lot of intricacies and nuances that you have to kind of understand and be able to work with. So there's not one silver bullet, there's no key action item you can take, but we have a lot of practical and technical steps that you can go and apply to your email, which gives you more control. All right, so why do we have this? So we have 2 articles linked here, and we will send out this so you can access these links later. But basically, Google and Microsoft, 2 of the biggest providers, they have tightened their standards. So we have these 2 emails. We did the heavy lifting. We read them, so you don't have to, you can, but we've incorporated all of this information in for you to have access to for what you need to know. One of the big things you'll notice here is it says November 2022. So this is really interesting to us, and we wanted to share it with you because we never saw this. This is something that we came across while we were working with our systems, and we want to make sure you've seen it. So this is all information about how are Google and Microsoft blocking emails and keeping things away from the inbox. So we read this, we made sure we have the information. We're going to share it with you. So really briefly, I want to talk just about email deliverability. So it's the ability of an email that you're sending to get to the inbox. So, that's whoever you intended your recipient to be, making sure it lands where you expect it to without being flagged or marked as junk. And we have, some impacts from low deliverability, and you'll see kind of a cycle in these. So when you have low deliverability, you're going to have lower open rates, you're going to have lower engagement, and that's going to cause, a damaged sender reputation. When you don't have people engaging with your emails, it can cause your sender reputation to be, flagged. It's not as good. It's not as clean. And then circularly, if you have a damaged sender reputation, you're not going to have as many emails land in the inbox. So you're not going to have open rates that are higher. You're not going to have increased engagement because they're not landing where you want them to. So as much as you can, take these steps from the onset of your domain. If you already, have some of these issues, it's not too late. We're still going to give you all the steps to take to make sure that you can increase your deliverability. So when you do have a lower sender, reputation, and you have lower engagement, you're going to have, decreased conversion. You're not going to make as many connections. You're not going to be able to reach as many people, and you're going to have wasted your time because those campaigns that you worked on, those emails that you worked on, they're not landing with the people that need to see them. All right, so we're going to talk about configuring email sending domains. So the first is improve sender identity. When this is done correctly, you're going to be able to send an email, and the email provider is going to be able to recognize you as the sender. And it's going to say, yes, this is a legitimate email, and it's going to get through, and it's not going to be hit by those filters, which means you're going to have improved email deliverability because your emails are landing in the inbox. And lastly, you have the tools in your belt to kind of control as much as you can your email reputation. And so you're relaxing on the beach, and you know that you have all the steps and all the tools. And Jim is going to go ahead and take it into some more technical aspects with WTF.
Okay, so now we're going to get into how to, okay? And I'm going to just say in advance, there's going to be a lot of steps here. Like Jenna said, there's no silver bullet. This is going to get a little technical, especially this slide. But at the very end, we're going to cover the 80-20, like what are the 20% of these things I can do to get 80% of the value. So just know that we're trying to make this definitive. So we go through everything. So we have a video later. If people have issues, we can mail them and say, this is the definitive source. But know that there's going to be a lot of steps because there's no silver bullet. And there really these days are a lot of things that can impact it. But I'm going to start out with, what has the biggest impact. And that's what Jenna just said, sending domains. So WTF, you're probably wondering that. Now get your mind out of the gutter. You're not, you're probably thinking something else when you say WTF and kind of emails going to spam. But what it really means is, what's that for? Okay. So I just want to highlight, here's the little screenshot from the other one. So Google basically said in November 2022, and like we kind of stumbled on this. I didn't see this in any press. I haven't seen anybody that actually saw this, but Google made a pretty substantial change, right? Saying like any senders who are not using SPF or DKIM records, their emails are likely to go to spam, okay? And so you've probably since then seen an elevated impact of that. And we've gotten ahead of that. And that's the whole purpose of this. We've made product changes we can explain, but this also has people that are, Brokerkit customers, people that are not. Either way, like whatever your tool set is, we'll show you how to do this stuff with Brokerkit, but whatever tools you're using, this stuff matters now, okay? So let's just start out with some of these, the three technical terms here are, I'm going to give you a demo and kind of show you what this means, but there's kind of three terms that are kind of most important on making sure you, that the providers know, who you really are, and the reason this happens, this is important is think of like all the, kind of like spam you've gotten via email, texting, and calling. And all three have gotten more difficult to get calls, texts, and emails delivered in the last year. We'll have separate webinars, and we have, we're getting ahead of the other topics too. But for today, we're just going to focus on email. But know that all three are. But what the key to it all is, what's happened is people realize that they could spoof other people and send messages, and that goes for calls and texts also, and therefore, send large volumes of email by kind of hiding their identity. So a lot of these, and it gets into the same thing with texting and calling, is making sure that you truly identify who you are, so that the providers know that it's a legitimate message. Okay. So there's kind of three things here. The DKIM is basically what it does is it adds a digital signature in the email header, and the header is like hidden. You don't see it, but it's behind the scenes. Like if you go into Gmail and you click the little three dots, you can say like view original source. that's where it's hidden essentially. And you're not seeing it in Gmail, the user isn't, but it's hidden in there. So basically what it does is adds a digital signature in there when you send an email with the DKIM in it. SPF is the second one. Now, what this is basically saying, as a sender, these are the tools that are allowed to send on my behalf, okay? And what this prevents is people spoofing and sending emails on your behalf. And I'll give you a good example. Phishing emails, okay? You've probably all gotten them where like via text or email where, they're impersonating a bank or, an insurance company or something like that, right? Saying, and they have like a link that goes to a website. Maybe it looks like it's from Wells Fargo. The website looks like it's Wells Fargo, but it's not, okay? That's how they can get away with it, right? Is they're spoofing an email, okay? And usually it's not wellsfargo.com because Wells Fargo has implemented this, okay? So they won't, so that it's not allowed. So what SPF is Wells Fargo saying like, this is what's allowed to send on my behalf, nobody else. DMARC is the third one, which is kind of the more advanced one. Google isn't saying, so the first two is what Google said, if emails are arriving in an inbox without these in it, they are likely to go to spam. That's what this article mentions basically from November. And that was a change at that time. These technologies have existed for a while, but that's when they first said like, this really matters, okay? So DMARC is the third one, which is basically what tells the recipient server, okay, well, if an email shows up without the DKIM and SPF, what should I do with it? Okay, and that record says they have three choices. Number one, most people haven't added this yet, but like, for instance, Wells Fargo for sure has added it, okay? Because what it allows Wells Fargo to do is say, if someone sent something on my behalf, using an email with wellsfargo.com and you check these two things and they don't show as valid, it gives them basically they can determine what happens. It can either go to spam, be bounced, or be allowed to go through. So Wells Fargo for sure is going to tell it to like bounce it essentially. But this allows people basically you to control what happens so that nobody can spoof you essentially, okay? And brokerage is not as big a deal. Federal government, super important that you can't spoof emails from the IRS, right? Or Wells Fargo, right? Any kind of banking relationship. But you as a broker, you are dealing with financial transactions of a very large value, right? Like, so that's why this can be important also. Okay, so now that's pretty technical. Let me show you how we implement in the product. You may not be a Brokerkit customer now. I'm going to show you how to do this. Like, hopefully the tool that you're using to send emails has this capability too. But this is what you would do if you were a Brokerkit customer. Okay, so I'm going to just go into kind of a demo account. You go in, you go to account settings, email here, and this is where you can add new sending domains. The domain is basically if my email is jim@brokerkit.app, the domain is the part after the @ sign, brokerkit.app. And it can be a subdomain, meaning it could be jim@mail.brokerkit.app, so that you can set up a separate subdomain just for sending email off of your domain, okay? So if you look, this one's verified, this one is not, okay? So you add it, but then essentially if you click here, it's giving you the records that you need to add. These records have to be added into where you're hosting your DNS. So if you have brokerkit.app in your GoDaddy account, that's where it's hosted, you have to take these records and put it in there. So it is a little technical. Now, if you're a Brokerkit customer, we have office hours you can jump on. We can help you kind of do this, but this is how you would do it. So essentially, we let you copy these records essentially and go add it into your GoDaddy account. This right here is the DKIM. This is the SPF. Note that if you already have a DKIM for other, say you're using another product also like MailChimp and you already have a DKIM for them, you can leave it. If you already have an SPF for them, don't add a new one for Brokerkit. Just edit and only add this part, including our email service provider, okay? And then this allows us to track records. If you go down here, this is the more advanced setting, the DMARC. This we kind of hide as an advanced setting. The reason is because this is like, Google is basically saying these right here, these two are the ones in that article that need to be added. The D mark, okay, this is a little more advanced. Long-term, this is going to be, back to the 80-20. This is the 80. This is the more advanced setting. But note that if you don't configure this right, you could cause people to drop your emails. Okay, that's why we kind of hide it as advanced settings. And we recommend that you do that on, if you're a Brokerkit customer on office hours with our team before you try that. But this should be kind of fairly straightforward. A lot of people that are, and if you have an IT person, if you give this to them, they could probably do this on your behalf. So that's basically how to actually set these things up. Okay. So now let's get into, so that was the biggest impact is setting that up. Okay. Because Google has specifically said that's what's going to matter. But let's get into more things. Like I said, this is going to be a pretty long list. We're going to go through all the things that could impact you. Okay. And then go through at the end what matters most. So the next thing is, okay, use the same domain for sending email that you are hosting your public website and set up SPF and DKIM for that domain. So it's not just set up SPF and DKIM for that domain. It's make sure that your website is on that same domain, okay? So that they know, because they're going to look it up and that helps build authority that there's really a site there versus if you're sending, and the reason is because think back to the Wells Fargo scenario. People can just create a fake Wells Fargo or, domain, send on their behalf, but there's no real site there, okay? So the next one is reverse DNS lookup. So this is a little techie. What this means is, so an IP address is your address on the internet. Okay, that's the address of your actual server. So when you type in, and by the way, y'all can throw in questions too on this stuff if you want some clarifications as we go along, because I know this is a little technical. So on the internet, back to brokerkit.app, that's my domain. When I type that in the browser, basically what DNS is doing is going and pulling the IP address of that, which is the address on the internet of where that content is on that server, okay? So that's going from domain to IP. Reverse DNS record is from IP to domain. What Google is also saying is if you haven't mapped it in reverse, that can also cause you to have issues also. We'll let you kind of get there's a lot of links in this deck. And at the very end, we're going to give you the deck. But if you put it in there, you can throw your domain and your IPs in there and see, are there reverse lookups? But they want to be able to see it both ways. That can cause issues. Again, not as impactful as the sending domains. These are smaller things, but I'm going to go through everything. The next thing is kind of a no-brainer, but make sure nobody is marking any kind of internal emails from you as spam. Let me give you a prime example. If you're mailing your own agents and they click, spam on your emails or unsubscribe, that will actually negatively impact your brokerage emails and also their own emails if they're sending from your domain. So be very firm with your team, especially all your agents. You cannot mark any of our internal emails as spam, or and make it clear to them, it's going to cause them issues too for any of their emails with buyers and sellers, okay? So then warming up, okay? So, we allow out of our tool, and I know a lot of other tools allow you to send, kind of blast messages of fairly high volume or campaign messages. You need to be judicious with that, okay? And it's all about building your reputation as a sender, okay? So what the process of warming up means is gradually increasing the volume and frequency of email sends on a new or less active domain. So if you haven't been sending them, or you have a new domain, or you just switch providers, it's any of those three scenarios. Don't just go in and send huge amount volumes, okay? Because you haven't built authority yet, okay? And you want to build domain authority so that those senders know that the emails from you are legitimate, okay? Because back to the Wells Fargo scenario, what would they do? They would get a new domain and they would go in and send huge blasts, right? So that's an indicator that it's potentially spam, okay? So send email so this is specifically from Google's article here, what they're saying to do. Send email at a consistent rate, avoid sending it kind of in bursts. So think of batches instead of huge generic messages. We'll get into it. Batches, more regular batches versus every now and again, huge blast. Then the next one, ramp, right? Start with a low sending volume to engage users and slowly increase it. Okay. Engaged users is something we'll come back to too, right? Sending to people that are, and you have a way to track this engagement, like clicks and opens and things like that in Brokerkit and other tools also. If you send to people that are engaged, that also helps, okay, versus disengaged. The next one is avoid just big, sudden spike volumes if you don't do it. So if you have a new account, you've never done it, just avoid like huge blast emails, essentially. So then in terms of strategies, this goes back to like, kind of like, our philosophy is these days, what doesn't work really well, and I'll talk kind of recruiting emails is, a big blast maybe to the whole MLS once a quarter with like some generic, marketing kind of message. That doesn't really work. That's more of a spray and pray kind of message. It's going to not work from a technical perspective, but it just doesn't work as well overall, because what we recommend is more of a multi-channel, multi-touch outreach, which is multi-channel, meaning don't just rely on email. Okay. So for outreach, email, text, call, and social media. Okay. And we've built all four into our tool so that you can outreach. We highly recommend when we see people saying their messages aren't delivered, they're typically only calling or only emailing. It's the combination of all those, right? And think of the email in many ways is to warm them up for a call. Okay. Same for social media. Okay. Because at the end of the day, you need to start a conversation with people if you want to recruit them, right? Not many people are going to just reply to an email you blasted to the whole MLS saying, sounds great, let me just join your firm, right? It's all about starting a conversation. So that means multi-channel, but also multi-touch. Don't just send one. It's all about building territories of the agents, kind of near you. And if you're looking for experienced agents or new agents, and just consistently following up with people in a conversational format to get a conversation started with them. Okay. And then gradually, if you are going to be doing bulk email, no, the bulk email still works well for things like events, like HTML emails. The kind of multi-touch, multi-channel, it's more of a conversational approach, right? Where you're trying to like reach out, get to know the people, for instance, especially with experienced agents. But if you have a big event, right, it does make sense, whether it be a webinar in person to do bulk communication. Just don't go in having never done it and send huge ones, right? Gradually build up. Okay. And then the other thing is use engagement tracking in your tool. So we have it in Brokerkit, whatever tool you're using. All these things apply. If you can target messages to people that are engaged based on replies, clicks, opens. Same goes for texting, right? Like if you've had some kind of interaction with them and you're following up, that's going to help you. Okay. And the reason is back to Jenna mentioned this earlier, machine learning and AI. So think of Google. Google started as a search engine. Okay. Their purpose is to show you the best results. Okay. Success for them is when somebody goes to search, whatever is the most relevant result comes to the top. Now, how do they track that? They track that based on, what links get clicked on. If you click to it, do they click back? Right? Like they track kind of the user experience. Well, they've started doing this with email, right? So like, if you think of it, what they're trying to do with all these rules is make sure what lands in your inbox is something that is from a real person and that is authentic and that you would want to see. Okay. So that's warm up. So we're going to move on to contact list. The list you're using has a huge impact on this. So always start with a high quality contact list. Typically, when we see a lot of issues, it's people dealing with older lists, especially in real estate where there's a fair amount of turnover. If you have a list that's 3 years old, think of the attrition annually, especially in the last couple of years. What you're going to be doing is sending a lot of emails out to people that don't want to receive it. Okay. And they might have even turned off their email, right? And also, like, there's a lot of agents going from one brokerage to another. If you're mailing them on a brokerage email and they switch, that email is going to bounce. Bounces hurt you, okay? Because what you're telling Google is like you're not sending valid messages. Because like if you're sending a bunch that bounce, they start to question, like, are these really valid messages? Quality of list, hugely important. Now, one of the things that our product enables, but a lot of people do, is using MLS data. This tends to be a pretty good list as long as you're updating it. Okay, don't just pull it and then keep using the same list for 3 years. People, agents tend to update their MLS data because, right, that's their business. That they want to get the notifications around their listings, whether it be on the buy or sell side. So they tend to have valid contact information in there, right? So really good source of data. Okay, events from 3 years ago, probably less good. Okay. So then the next one is, there are some tools. If you have an older list and you're not sure, neverbounce.com is a great one where you can basically go in and you can basically go in and upload your list, and it'll cleanse it essentially. Okay, so opted, and I'm seeing some questions in here. I'm going to get through this slide and then I'm going to come back to the questions. So never bounce. If you have a list that's not from the MLS and it's recent, and maybe it's from events or it's older, or you're not sure it's good, never bounce is when you can import it and make sure you have a quality list, and it'll tell you which ones are really valid. Because if you're sending to invalid emails that bounce and there's a high rate of them, that will absolutely negatively impact your domain reputation. The next one is any opted-in lists, like where if they went to the event, right, or they went to a webinar, or you had an interaction with them, they're going to be more engaged, and it's going to help your domain reputation. Okay. The next one, maintain your contact list in the CRM based on responses and engagement. We talked about this before, but like people that responded to you, people that have been engaged, send them messages. Okay. Filter on them when you can, so that like they're going to think the message is more relevant. Therefore, Google's going to think the message is more relevant, and therefore your emails are more likely to end up in the inbox. Okay. Consider archiving disengaged users. So either archiving or labeling them somehow. Like if nobody's ever responding, and it's not like to the first email, but by the 5th email, the 10th email, if they've never engaged at all, it could actually be hurting you to send them those emails every time. The last one is, this is a little bit of a hack, but anytime you're sending an email to someone that has you in their contact list, they're much more likely to, end up in the inbox. Okay. So think of so like that goes for your own agents, that goes for, right? Like think about it, right? Like, so in Google has your contacts in there, right? So they can tell. So think of asking your agents to add all them, the brokerage email into their contacts. As you meet with people, think of ways where you can get them to add you as a contact, right? At events, giving out business cards, asking them to add it, but also like some way, there are some apps too where you can hold it on your phone. You meet people at events and they can scan it, like the QR code right on the app, and it'll add it right in their contacts. That's another way to get you into their contacts, and therefore likelier to land up in email. Okay, so I'm going to go into some. Okay, so the first question, some of these are pretty technical. I'm going to just pause and answer questions for a little while. So the first question is, how do you know what your IP address is? Okay, so that one is, so that link I gave before, this MX tools, this is going to be a little technical so this right here, this site right here has like all kinds of tools all around all the technical side. Now this is going to be for technical people, but if you go into mxtoolbox.com, add your domain here and do a lookup, you'll be able to see it. And there's various, so if I do that brokerkit.app right here and look it up, it's going to give me the stats on it and tell me, for instance, I don't have a DMARC. It'll tell you all this information essentially. And there's lots of kind of tools. So again, this is pretty technical. If you need help, if you're a customer, you can jump on office hours, but like you can jump on and if you have somebody technical, like your IT person can do this, or you jump on our office hours for customers and we can help you with that. So the next, Melinda said, are you saying here that Google will mark your emails as spam and Brokerkit helps to make them not spam? No, the point is prevent them from ever being marked as spam. Once they're marked as spam, that's the problem. You want to, like, these are all measures to prevent it from ever being marked as spam. Okay. And future emails. So, okay. So what's considered a huge bulk email? I would say above 1,000, right? Once you get, and especially once you get above 10,000, right? Like if you get above 50,000, that's where, right? Like, so think of kind of like, it's not linear. It's like exponential. Anything above 1,000 starts to like matter. Anything for sure above 10,000, anything above 50, 100, it starts mattering more, right? But if you go send 50,000 emails and you've never done it, just expect a lot of them, and you haven't gradually warmed up, a lot of them will probably go to spam. Okay, so let's see. So then Daniel asks, can you import back from Neverbounce? Yes, you can. So you can pull your list and then import it. But know that MLS data, I don't know that I would run that through Neverbounce. That's going to be for, like if you have other lists that are older, okay? And there's a cost to that service too, by the way. Let's see. So somebody asked, how do I follow up? How do I sign up for Brokerkit office hours for people with questions? So if you're a customer, if you go to Help Center right here where it says scheduled training, you'll see in here office hours. You can jump on as a customer and we'll help you with all that. Okay, let's see. So will adding the Brokerkit email domain and DNS affect the settings that were added by website providers and email providers? This one right here, the DKIM, should not impact other senders, okay? The SPF, if you have already set up another sender, then you might already have an SPF record. Don't add this as well. Just add this part to your existing one. This one right here, this is why I say it's advanced. This absolutely can, if you don't know what you're doing, this can impact other tools also. So that's I guess an answer to that. So then Melinda's asking, getting Brokerkit will help us avoid sending spam emails. Yeah, so well, it's not just the tool, right? It's the tool plus all the things I'm covering here, right? We're a platform that enables it. And we can help you set this up, but a lot of tools don't allow you to do what I'm saying, basically. And I'm not sure it's widely understood that a lot of these issues are really going to impact people. So then Melinda's asking, with Google, if our agent subdomain gets marked as spam, does it also affect our subdomain emails or only the main domain? So good question. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but if I add the word email, or you could have one for recruiting that's like join.brokerkit.app or careers.brokerkit.app, Google thinks they're separate sites. So it segments them. Now, the one thing I would say is if they all forward to the same website, Google could think they're the same thing. So be careful with that also. Okay, so then, let's see. I think I'm gonna keep going. Those are most of the questions for now. We can come back to them later. Okay, so let's just get back to the slides because this is pretty dense information. And again, this will be on YouTube later for you to listen to again, and we'll have the slides. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to, we talked about warming up your domain, the list. Now we're going to talk about the content. Okay, so the content matters also. Okay, but let me just start with kind of the key concept here. Okay, so what Google and Microsoft are trying to do is make sure, just like, well, let's just take Google, right? Their job with search is make sure what shows at the top when you search on a keyword is the most relevant thing, right? So you get the most value. They're doing this with email now, okay? Microsoft and Google, they're using this machine learning AI to try to predict what people want to see, okay? I don't know if anybody's seen Social Dilemma on Netflix about how Facebook, they grew so fast by basically using the AI machine learning to just predict what people wanted to see in their feed, and it becomes super clickbaity, right? And then they're trying to drive engagement, right? And then people keep going into Facebook because it's showing them things they want to see. The same thing was happening with inboxes, okay? They're using this to predict what you want to see, and they're predicting what you don't want to see and moving it to spam. So content matters too, okay? So think of the user experience. Think of right back to spray and pray. The random email once a quarter saying how great you are as a brokerage. Do they really want to perceive that? Maybe not. But a directed message from you congratulating them on a recent sale and saying by the way, do you want to grab coffee, or trying to offer some value? Is there reaching out to people that are newer agents, offering to kind of coach them, or reaching out about some way about how you're going to help them? They're gonna be, right, from the user experience perspective, they're going to be much more excited to get that email, right, than an email that looks like a marketing email with you saying how great you are, right? Think of, from their perspective, how can I add value? That's what matters most here, okay? And that's what Google and Microsoft are trying to predict. The next thing is there's some specific tools in here we recommend. I mean, again, you'll be able to download the deck at the end. These tools will help you optimize your subject line and the content, okay, using some AI machine learning tools, basically. But the subject line is really going to impact the open rate, right? And if you're getting the way you write the subject line has a huge impact on open rate, right? And if they don't open it, they never saw it, right? So always start with optimizing subject line, which then impacts your open rate. Then the email grader helps with kind of the content itself. So check that out. Okay. So the next thing, easy, scannable, concise paragraphs. Like long blocks of text, people are going to, delete or unsubscribe. They don't want to read your super long email. Okay. Like short conversational emails, three sentences, end on a question. Hey, I saw that you just closed this home. Congrats, have time for coffee or something like that. Like that seems authentic, real, from a real person, right? Or, hey, we have this webinar coming up, you might benefit from it. Or we have this kind of coaching program. Or, I see that your production's down. Is there something I could do to help you with that? Or I see your production's up. Are you paying too high of a split? Right. But also, like, kind of think of points or paragraphs, right? So that somebody can just look at it. If there's longer content, break it into like bullet points, paragraphs, so that they can scan it with their eye really quickly and just see what it's about and decide if they want to read more. So that's if it's long. Ideally, it's short, but if it needs to be long, make sure it's not like one block of text. Okay. The next is spam trigger words. So there's certain words that sound spammy. Okay. If you put cash and a bunch of dollar signs, right, it will go to spam likely, right? Like, because it's going to sound like direct marketing kind of language. So think of kind of like, super direct marketing language like that. So one word I heard, by the way, this is the other thing that's happening is the same thing's happening on Indeed, on job postings. What I heard actually 2 days ago is the number one word that will get you your job description, your job posting on Indeed, shadow banned, is the word rock star. Okay. If you put rock star in it, like, just expect to not get many applicants, because Indeed is doing the exact same thing, by the way, with all these tools. Okay. So attachments and photos, beware of those, right? Like the attachments, because it could be malware, right? Big attachments. Photos attached are dicey. Images in the email, good, right? Especially if they're on their phone, they see it. Another thing that actually came up the other day is so we allow you to send video emails out of Brokerkit. If you look at it, what it does is it adds an image into the email that links to the video. Now, I've had a number of questions, and somebody added on our idea form the other day, well, can't you just put the video in the email? Well, the answer is no, because what that means is you'd be putting HTML and CSS. You'd be putting code in the email, which is a security risk. They're going to block it, Google and Microsoft. The reason is you could put malicious code in that causes like malware to get installed on your machine. So they block. Anytime you put code like JavaScript or something like that, just expect that will get blocked. So if you try to embed a video into an email, because if you go to YouTube, you can just copy the embed code, try it, put it in an email, try to send it, it'll get blocked. Okay. The image itself will go through. Emails that are majority of HTML, like heavy graphics without a lot of words, that'll cause an issue. And then the next one is from the Google article, which was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard this before. But don't mix different content in the same message too. Like don't include a sales message and some promotion, right? Like try to keep them distinct. Like, so each email has a purpose, right? And so emails should be, in our view, either conversational or informational. HTML works well for informational emails, right? Which is like, hey, here's this webinar coming up. Here's this event. We have this training program. Just want to let you know, but you're not expecting to reply to it, right? It's like there are links in there that they're clicking probably to sign up. Conversational is, I'm sending you this email and it looks like a person wrote it, and it's a few sentences with like ending on a question is the call to action saying like, hey, I see your production's down. Would you like to get together and kind of brainstorm on how we can improve it? Boom. Like, that's a conversational email. They have a distinct purpose. So before you write the email, no, am I trying to give them information? Am I trying to start a conversation? And don't mix kind of like things in it, essentially. And then the other one is like mails from the same type should have the same from address, right? So what this means is you may not want to send emails to your own agents versus recruiting, because it might start to think that that email, it's like, if you might want to have like certain people do the recruiting emails, certain people like send the emails to your own agents, right? Or buyers and sellers, right? Like, don't use the same email for all of them. It can start to get confused trying to predict whether it's a valid message. Whereas if the same email is sending or the same people, it doesn't have to be the exact same email, but the same emails, right? And in Brokerkit, you can send us different emails. The same emails are sending the recruiting buyers and sellers on transactions, right? And then your own agents, right? Then it can better predict, is this valid for those people? Okay, so then let's ask, what about the videos sent an email? As I understand that, videos open automatically. No, see, that's the point, that you can't add it. That's where they block it, right? Because if it opened automatically, that would be allowing scripting in the email. And so there's something called a cross-site scripting attack, where you can put malicious code in and it executes like off somewhere else. Like that's why they won't let it happen, okay? Okay, so then another one, if you have plans to build a drip, are they built around these rules? So yeah, absolutely. So we have a campaign library at Brokerkit. We've tried to optimize around all of these things for sure. So now the thing I would say is anything in our campaign library, always customize it with your own, market specifics, your own value proposition. But we've tried to kind of, as we do these, test, align them with these practices. And by the way, that's why it's potentially a big time saver, is this is a lot of stuff to think about, right? We've tried to think about it and integrate them and evolve them through time. But actually, one of the questions we get a lot of is, I don't see a lot of like HTML emails in here. Like, they look like really short messages. Well, there's a reason for that. If it looks like a short conversational message that looks like you personally sent it to someone, right? They're much more likely to think it's real. Open it, look at it, respond to it. Big HTML emails, especially brokerages with a big marketing team, right? If you have every carpenter, if they have a hammer, they think everything's a nail. Real estate is different than most businesses because it's essentially a B2B sale. Agents have their own business. You're trying to do a B2B sale and attract them to your business. They're in many ways like a customer to you, just like buyers and sellers that you're trying to attract. Marketing techniques that work in a B2C or other businesses, B2B, which is really leads to salespeople, is different. It's really sales messages versus marketing messages, okay? So like big HTML emails works great to invite people to events, does not work great to start conversations with people. And at the end of the day, when you're trying to especially attract experienced agents, you need to basically think of, the way you need to think about it is, I'm going to use a tool like Brokerkit, can be something else. I'm going to pull in data from Realytics. I'm going to define territories of all the agents in my territory. Maybe I'm going to filter it by production and other things like Realytics is predictive analytics. But then I'm going to try to build a relationship with them. You don't build a relationship by blasting them with marketing emails. You need to try to start a conversation with them. Okay, so then that was content. I'm going to keep going. So the next one is when you send. So when do you send emails can also impact this, okay? So let's see. So email sending domain optimization. So here's another link that you can click on that will predict the best times, best day of the week, best time of the day for emails to be read, okay? Recommend you check this out, okay? Now, if you look at it, typically try to email between 8 and 11. Those are the best time. By the way, the older engine for our campaigns in Brokerkit randomly sent essentially around those times, 8 to noon, because of those times, and randomly so that it wouldn't send a bunch of agents sitting in the same room the same email at the same time. Now, with our newer campaign engine, the Campaigns 2.0 we've just rolled out, you can pick specific times to send it. So with the campaigns, what you can do is go in and pick specific times and set steps to go out exactly on a day of the week at the time precisely, based on what's most likely to get read. And then frequencies. Yeah, just back to, like batching and warming, right? But even after you warm up, think of it this way, back to improving the user experience. Don't blast generic messages to huge lists. Use tools like the Realytics data and Brokerkit to filter down to people with, right? Like, you don't want to necessarily send the same email to somebody that sold 20 million last year versus, has been an agent for a year and maybe sold 500K, right? Or even 1 million, like different messages. So think of segment your list, send batches, Send it consistently to people. Send things that are going to be relevant to them, that they're much more likely to consider a valid message. They're going to see engagement. Google's going to see engagement. Therefore, your next message you send them is going to be more likely to land in their inbox. They're less likely to hit unsubscribe because they want to get the message. Okay. So then domain monitoring. Okay. So then back to the technical stuff. How do I make sure I have this set up? There are some monitoring tools. Again, pretty technical. For customers who can jump on office hours, we can help you out with this stuff. Number one tool that I recommend is this mail tester. Okay. So this one, if you go to this site, essentially pretty cool. What you do is you grab this email address, you send an email to it, and make sure you send from the tool you're going to be sending your email tool, your recruiting emails from, and send the exact same email that you would send a recruit to this. Okay. And then hit check your score. It'll score it based on the technical things. Do you have the technical stuff set up? But it will score the content, the spamminess of the email. It'll tell you like these words in it are spammy. You have too much HTML. You need more text. So really cool tool because it kind of covers, content and technical setup. Let's see. So then domain reputation. So this one is an important one. This is what Google tells you your reputation is. So if you go to postmaster.google.com, you can add your own domains. You will see what Google thinks of your domains. And you can add them all, and you can add the subdomains and see, does it think, back to one of the questions earlier is, could my agents on a subdomain impact my domain? Well, add them all and look, right? And then you can tell exactly what it thinks. So the next one is monitor engagement. So spams, kind of like, there's some kind of targets around like really, bounces, keep that low. Okay. Bounces really can hurt you if it's an older list, but your open rates, this goes back to subject line and is it ending in the inbox, but you really should be 30 to 50%, or there's something that should be investigated. Clicks, it depends on the average should be, at least a few percent. And it kind of depends on clicks is really only for informational emails. So it kind of like, if you're only sending conversational emails, expecting a reply, clicks doesn't matter. That's only on informational emails where it's like an HTML sign up for this webinar. You want to see clicks, right? So like that one kind of like depends on the nature of the emails. Okay. But delivery, it means, by the way, not that it ended up in the mailbox. It means that the server accepted it. Okay. That should be in the mid to high 90s. Okay. Then the other things like content can impact, does it actually end in their inbox? But the delivery rate should be at 95%. So the next thing is this MX toolbox that I showed you earlier. This is probably the simplest thing that's kind of like easy for you to run also on the purely technical stuff. If you put your domain in here or your email address, it'll do a health check. One of the things it's going to tell you, by the way, is if your domain is on blacklists. Okay. Like some of these things like sending to lists, huge blasts with a lot of bounces in it will get you on blacklists. Okay. Or you can get on blacklists if you have some of the stuff misconfigured too, by the way, the technical stuff. But if you're on a blacklist, it'll tell you, and what you can usually do is just Google the name of the blacklist and there'll be a site where you can go appeal it. This will tell you the technical setup and if you're on blacklist. This is more like some of the technical and the content, okay? And then there's also something too, which is like back to Wells Fargo and the phishing analogy. It goes back to your site and your domain, right? Do they consider it a safe site? Okay. Just back to, right, like phishing websites that are faked Wells Fargo sites, they don't consider safe. They want to block, right? So there's something called Google Safe Browsing that your domain can end up, it's kind of tied to email, right? Because it's earlier I covered, Google said like your email needs to link to your domain because they're looking at both together, right? Think of Google. They started in search. They look at it holistically, right? So if they think your website is like has malware or is scammy, like you could end up on this site. So check that out because this matters for your website too, because they're interrelated. So the 80-20. Okay. So that was like a ton of tips. Okay. And I probably just overwhelmed you and your mind is blown. So just know that like not all of them matter as much as each other. What's the 80-20? Like what are the things I should absolutely start with? Sending domains. Number one, setting up the two records, the DKIM and the SPF. that for sure, like you definitely want to do that. However you're sending recruiting emails, whether it's in Brokerkit, another tool, make sure you're doing that. Now, I will say that if you're just going into your Google email or your Microsoft email and just like sending it one at a time, they know that. So that's not a worry. When it's an issue is if you're sending from another external tool, like a CRM, a mail provider, and you've not set these things up. That's when it starts to be an issue. The next is warm up your domains and IPs. Okay. And it's not just the domain. It's if I switch providers, the IP itself, meaning like through a sender, warm it up gradually, follow those. Don't just on it, switch providers or you've never done it, send huge bulk emails. Use lists with good information, right? With current information. MLS data is great. If you're using things that are not MLS data, check your list and check it frequently because there's high turnover in real estate. And after a few years, that list is going to be bad and you're going to get a ton of bounces and it's going to hurt you. And then just like be empathetic. Think of the user experience. Send emails that people will be delighted to receive. Think of that word delighted. Like how many of your emails would somebody be delighted to receive? And how many of the emails do you get are you delighted to receive? Right? Like too many are kind of spray and pray here. Okay. And then multi-touch, multi-channel, like that's the big thing, right? Huge blasts don't work great. What works great is, multi-touch, multi-channel. Don't just rely on email, right? Rely on email, text, call, social. Because by the way, if you already reached out on LinkedIn, right, they saw that, or Facebook, or you're a friend on Facebook or LinkedIn and they've seen your copy, then you mail them, they're much more likely to be engaged, right? Or, right, and the same thing, don't call before email before you call, maybe add texting in there, right? But it's really just consistently, especially experienced agents, consistent communication through time, to just get to know them and really build that relationship versus big blasts, basically. Okay. And then I think, Jenna, can you add that link into the kind of, let's see, out there into the chat so they can see that? So anybody that doesn't get it, you can also mail support@getbrokerkit.com, and then we will go ahead and put that link out there. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So let me go back to questions. So why Brokerkit related to email deliverability? Well, we allow people to send emails and it's a big part of recruiting. And it's an important topic because things have gotten more complicated. We want to make sure everybody knows how to get their emails through. All these, if you're not a Brokerkit customer, we'd love to work with you. Our team, our technology platform helps implement this. Our customer success team can help you set up, follow these practices. Our campaign library has emails written essentially to these best practices. But you should be doing these things regardless, but love to work with you. And again, if you sign up for demo and purchase Brokerkit this week, we'll waive the implementation fee. Happy to answer any questions. And of course, this is going to be posted in our YouTube channel for reference later. And you can go ahead and kind of click into those links. And then for the people that are, Brokerkit customers, you can jump on the office hours and we can talk through these things and help make sure everything is set up. Okay, thanks and have a great day.